Aren't you a little bit sick and tired of everyone being a moral philosopher these days? Does it not bother you and annoy you the way it does me? That every time you open social media, everybody is fucking virtue signaling about how wonderful they are. Everybody has to have some stupid fucking judgment about something. Oh, this guy did something bad? Then let me show you how good I am by telling you how bad he is. You know. Doesn't that kind of virtue signaling sicken you to the fucking core? Because it does me. I'm sick and tired of all of you people pretending you're good people when you're not. You're all feeding on the corpses of history. You're feeding on the global workers that you exploit every day, including children. And you think you're such fucking good people because you can tweet something. Oh, fuck you. I'm sick and tired of all of you motherfuckers who think you're good people. You're not good people. You continue living every day knowing that you contribute a great amount of pain and suffering to the world. You can't even do as much as not eat animals. Same with me. I don't have the willpower to stop it, and you know perfectly well what the consequences of it are, but you keep doing it anyway. You're a rapist and a murderer. And then you have the gall to show up on Reddit, on YouTube, and talk about how that guy did something bad. So fuck him. All the while not calling out your own bullshit. Just so you can look good in the eyes of others. Well, quite frankly, just as bad as you. Now, this kind of shit pisses me off. I'm tired of people pretending they're right about something. You people are not right about anything. You just think you are. But you are the shit of the world. You are a series of shits that the world takes, and it comes out in the form of you and your little friends. Fucking pathetic assholes that you are. Aren't you sick and tired of hearing this kind of stuff from people that you know perfectly well are assholes? Kids that used to bully other kids, that used to speak and still speak behind other people's backs. But then when the light shines upon them, they start dancing. Ah, la 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 la. Aren't I such a great fucking person when the cameras are rolling? But we all know what you are deep inside when the cameras are not rolling. Don't you all have experiences like this? Maybe a friend, a family member, where you come together and everybody's all happy and pretentious, but then push comes to shove and they leave you in the dirt. I've done it too. I'm an asshole. People lose their shit. That's just the way things work. And that's okay, there's not much you can do about it. All I ask is, just stop pretending you're good people. It's okay to be what you are, you can't help it. You can't help being an asshole, it's not really possible. So I say. But can you at least stop pretending you're good people? Can you do everyone the basic courtesy of admitting that much? Because at the end of the day, you're not a good person. You contribute to all this pain and terror, and you get away with it just because you happen to be at the right place at the right time. That's the fundamental truth. And many people try to turn that truth into something that is wholly writ. They justify the situation. They pretend they are where they are because they deserved it. Because they're Christians, or they're white, or because they worked hard, so it's okay. All the while not considering that you're just lucky. You're lucky to be where you are. Lucky to have the capacities that you happen to have. You're lucky that your drawbacks don't outweigh your positives. You're lucky that you are born into the right country, in the right year, to right parents. And then when it comes to somebody who's unlucky, on the one hand, many of you will defend them and say, oh, poor, he's just a poor victim, blah, blah, which is true. But then the moment you find out he does something that you don't approve of, suddenly it's his fault again. Oh, he's a bad guy, he did a bad thing. You know, or this virtue signaling. You know, he said the N-word on the stream, or you know, some bullshit that might even be really bad. I'm not saying it's not, but you know, it's just so annoying to see this, you know, expose about this guy, and he's exposed, and here's the situation, and you know, it's just some fucking cunt who built his empire on corpses, who now tells us how wonderful he is by telling others who are also awful how awful that third guy is. Because we pick out one thing, he did one bad thing, one guy, one bad thing, or even multiple bad things, or even a group, and you say, bad apple, bad apple. And that's very, but you remain silent about the collective. You remain silent about you know, the whole groundwork which allows the whole society to function in the first place. Right? So basically what you people do is very much like what people who, I don't know, defend cops or something say when they're like, oh, there's just a couple of bad apples. You do exactly the same crap when it comes to society in general, insofar as you defend society or remain silent about the deficiencies of society, your country, your nation, whatever, or your class, your religion, whatever it is that you suck up to. Most of you suck up to the state, but anyway, at the very least, your society you suck up to, you defend it, but you remain quiet about you know, the structural foundations of it, right? And so that's basically the same thing that cop defenders do, people like that do, when they're like, well, you know, the cops are nice people, but there are bad apples. On some level, that's a good argument, right? But that's exactly what you do, and you reject that argumentation. You think the whole point of cops is to enforce society, the norms of society, which you see as violent. But on the other hand, like, you recognize that truth, but on the other hand, you do exactly the same thing when you pick out individuals in society and you shit all over them, while remaining quiet about how, you know, the whole of society is rotten. Like, so on the one hand, you recognize that it's rotten when it's convenient to you, but when it's not convenient to you, which is when, you know, you're actually supposed to take personal responsibility to defy society in general, right? You turn your back on that same wisdom, you know, that society is fundamentally violent and so on. You suddenly turn your back on that whole fucking wisdom by just picking out one guy or one group. Oh, he's a bad apple, bad apple. And every time you do that, you betray your origins. You betray the fundamental truth that that guy can only be a product of his environment. You remain quiet on the important bit, right? You basically shifting the subject. You're basically removing the subject and the predicate, where it's supposed to say society is evil, the subject and the predicate, and then you replace those with this guy is evil, right? So the subject and the predicate have been changed, and that allows you to implicitly or explicitly, but sometimes implicitly, usually implicitly, justify society, because society is this functioning thing. It's might have problems, but it's a functioning thing, and it's a good thing that we have it, and blah blah blah, and people in general are decent, all that kind of horseshit. You implicitly assume those foundations, and you pick out individuals who are supposed to be the baddies, right? That's basically a good way for you to defer responsibility. You are supposed to take responsibility for the evils of society, because you are the one who keeps maintaining it. You might even have kids. You justify society. You want it to continue. You don't do anything to stop society. You don't say loud and straight it shouldn't exist. Society is evil. We should not continue society. We should just let it die by not contributing to it, by dropping out of it, by critiquing it at every point. But when you pick out an individual and you shit on him, you just you just remove that responsibility and you impose it on the individual. And so every time somebody does that, it pisses me off. Because even though he might be a bad guy, I'm sure he is, I have no interest in defending anybody. The fact is, people like you defend society. You defend the very structure that gave birth to that person, because you don't criticize society at each point. You just say, oh, he is bad. You don't say, the whole structure is bad, which gave birth to him. That's a nice excuse for you to have. Alright? So what else? That's kind of an introduction to the topic, but we could go on forever. I just all this horse shit. Yeah, just things that piss me off. Like, again, you have this fucking political correctness, LGBT stuff, all that kind of stuff, woke, whatever you want to call it. Which, the problem with that sort of stuff is not that it's necessarily bad. I don't think it's necessarily bad at all. But you just know that it's just always annoying that people are so dishonest. That they say things they don't even mean. They say things they don't even understand, because it's conducive to them to say it. It becomes for them, inclusivity, acceptance, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. It becomes to them an edict, a religion, where every company and every university has to say the line, and you have to say the words, the proper words. And if you don't want to, then you're canned. And progressives will defend it without understanding that this is not necessarily a good thing. They defend it without understanding that they're just participating in the same kind of fundamentalism that they ostensibly oppose in the first place. Well, we don't like religious fundamentalists, but here are the list of words you're allowed to say. Here's the list of beliefs that you're forced to hold. And see, the problem with this is not that the belief itself is bad, that people should have equality and right. It's good. I'm not it's not a right-wing critique. I'm not stupid. I'm trying to do the opposite of bullshitting you. I'm trying to get you down to the facts, the brass tacks, which is that even if that's true, even if equality and things like that are nice things, the moment you put it in this context of a series of edicts, you just turn it into another religion, another ideology, and you just turn it into this fundamentalist fundamentalism, which you're supposed to oppose if you're the exact person who is supposed to hold these ideas. So that's the funny thing, right? So, you know, in my previous video I said how if you took a guy that was a progressive guy and he believed in the LGBT plus supporter, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff, and you took him and you removed his precious words, the flags, the symbols, the associations he has. So basically you take away you take away all his tools that he uses to support the LGBT, right? The general kind of progressive vibe, milieu that he finds himself in, the LGBT flags, the words equality, equity, blah blah blah, the rewards he gets for supporting the stuff, maybe even the they them pronouns and things like that. You take away all that stuff and you plop him down somewhere else. That was, let's say, 50 years ago. You could plop him down somewhere, maybe the US 50 years ago. Do you think that guy is gonna be a supporter of LGBT at that point? The problem is that if you take away his precious words, you take away his precious little ideas and flags and images that he has in his head, which amounts to his support. You rob him, you disabuse him of all that. There's nothing that's left. So he's no longer a supporter. He will become an enemy, because 50 years ago in the same place, different ideas and images ruled. So because this guy is basically empty, and all he's capable of doing is assimilating those ideas in his head, he will just pick up those ideas which were then prevalent. So these people would be Nazis if you plop them down in Nazi Germany, right? So the ultimate question you could ask is, would you be a Nazi? You have to ask yourself, if you want to be decent and honest, if you have enough original courage, enough original language and vocabulary, ideas that are really your own, so that when they if I were to pick you up and plop you down somewhere else, maybe in the same place that you are now, but 50 years ago, would you still retain your ideas? Would you still be true to yourself, or would you just become a puppet of the people that oppress at that point? That's the fundamental question. And my pessimistic answer is that most of you would fail. And that's perfectly obvious by the way that most people communicate, the way they're only able to use the language, the contemporary lingo. They are only able to communicate through memes. And if you remove those memes, they have nothing left. They cannot create their own. They cannot create their own little universe where they have enough original courage to remain who they truly are. That if you whittle them down, there's nothing left. And that's the tragedy. And so this is why I hate those people who are against subjectivity. So they say it's kind of philosophy stuff, where they say well, you can't have your own language, because if you have your own language, nobody understands you. Well, good, at least I'm original. They say you couldn't maintain coherence if everything is subjective and relative. So you need some kind of objective system to keep it steady. But I don't seem to get that. You know, it's almost the opposite, that if you have this objective system, or even just the relative system of society, you become slaves to that system. You become a slave to that system, and so you're the one who really doesn't have coherence anymore, because you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. You know, it's the opposite. You should be a subjectivist. You should be an individualist. You should be somebody who owns his own words, creates his own sentences, and his own unique ideology, his unique ambience. Anybody who tells you that you can't do that because you'll be incoherent then is your enemy. He's just somebody who wants to assimilate you to society or his own bullshit. There is no objectivity. There is nothing is fixed, steady. So this coherence argument is pointless in the first place, because nothing is objective. It's the illusion of objectivity that you get in society, not its actual form or substance. You might get its form, but not its substance. We're all just individuals existing individually, if you even want to call us individuals. And we try to build a case for ourselves by making a society. And so that's how it happens that people like that come to be. This guy that I was talking about, you know, Mr. Progressive, holds those ideas as if they were sacred and unquestionable. But if you were to pluck him up and plop him down somewhere else 50 years ago, the whole motherfucker would change. The test is to try and whittle down that person and to see what would remain if you did. Would that person carry enough original courage so that they would still be more or less themselves if you did this displacement experiment on them? So that's just a little thought experiment I think you can do on people, and I do it all the time, invariably. And when I do, I just think, I immediately get this sense that this person is hardly even a person. You know, like when you listen to me it's always the same. You listen to some guy who's a sycophant for the current regime of my country, let's say. And you just listen to him talk, and all the words that he says, you know, if you were to do the experiment, he would be nothing after that. He would be still kind of himself, but he would just be a jerk somewhere else, you know what I mean? He would just venerate ideas in his own kind of way, in a different place at a different time. You know, like maybe he would still have sort of the same political ideas, but on a more specific level, he would be lost. You know, you could paint almost anything on him, and I believe if it depends on how liberal the society is. I believe that if you go hard enough, and you thoroughly brainwash that person from the very beginning, there will be nothing left at all. Almost nothing. Maybe some inkling of something, like maybe if he was born a psychopath, he will still be a psychopath, if you want to use those words. But pretty much you could turn him in whichever way you want. It's just very difficult to draw the line here, because it always goes into questions of what is biology and what is not biology and blah blah blah, for which nobody really knows the answers. But basically, you could turn him into anything, so that pisses me off. When you look at a person and you can just tell This guy has not seen the sun. This guy has not had his own little world. His world is just a mere pathetic contingency. It has no originality, no courage, no creativity, no tenderness, no nothing. It's just a big pile of dog shit where he pretends he's a good person because he says the right words, and they all think that. Be it the left, the right, they all think they're doing somebody a favor. Even if they genocide you, they will say, we're doing them a favor. They don't have to suffer anymore. Or something or other. You know, we're converting them from gay to straight. They won't go to hell. There's always a justification. You can't, if I might offer one piece of advice, it would be, well, what Carlo Mikestetter said. Don't be satisfied with the contingency of what is given to you. Don't pretend that just because you're on the left, you know, you're suddenly impeccable. And oh, you're right, no matter where I plop you down, you will always come up on top ethically. Because the left can create all kinds of disgusting arguments where actually genociding people is a good thing. The only way you could evade that is if you have it in your ideology that you can't kill people. But then again, if I took that away, would you then regain it? You can't pretend that your shit works, whether you're a Christian, a Jew, a liberal or a leftist. Even though you might be more decent than the rest, if you're more progressive, I mean, you probably are, I'm not say you're not. It doesn't mean that you would retain it. And to me it also matters that you're not necessarily authentic. That, you know, in my opinion, somebody who is willing to sacrifice everything because he believes in his own cause is many times more ethical than some empty shell of an ideologist who's nonetheless benevolent. Because even though the outcome might be better, the outcome is fundamentally propped up by a lie, by an illusion. You know, that's why many of us are fascinated by kamikaze, for example. That even though I don't support war, I don't like that sort of stuff at all. It doesn't please me that people die or whatever, but you know, you can't help but respect that sort of commitment to something, even though it was awful and nasty. Do we not all in some sense respect it? To get into an aircraft and then fly into an enemy ship knowing that you'll never get out. There's something there that's very disturbing but also very profound. That's just a fundamental, it's not a justification for it, it's just a fundamental explanation of our psychology, you know. So, you know, I don't want to run away into my little idols, but you know, Bukowski says that you know, we admire people who are bad people, you know, because they get to do whatever they want. He says we admire that creature because he fully realizes himself, and so we're just jealous of that. And again, this is not justification for anything. It's just a fundamental explanation on the fundamental truths of our lives, that there's nothing about authenticity that's necessarily a good thing, right? That's something Slavoj Žižek has said. And so the way I would solve that problem is just say that, yeah, authenticity is not in and of itself good, but there can be a kind of honest, decent authenticity one which recognizes that the others are also just, you know, to use a little bit of aphorism, players in the game, that we're all, in a sense, together in this. And that, you know, if you wouldn't want it done to you, you wouldn't want it done, you shouldn't want done it to them. Shouldn't want it done to them, I think. That's the correct English. There's a kind of a recognition, a mutual recognition, which is necessary for honest authenticity. So the way I would solve the violence issue vis-a-vis authenticity is to just see that when you try to justify violence, you're doing something dishonest. So again, if you make use of Mikkelstädter, he would say that, you know, if you impose violence on somebody, you're being dishonest because you're just assimilating to the present contingency. You accept what is the present contingency as sufficient to you. Right? That just because you have somebody that you could abuse in front of you doesn't mean that it's righteous to do it. It doesn't mean that it's good to do it because, you know, even though you're authentically doing it, even though you can do it, even though there's nothing restricting you, no morality telling you not to do it, you're still being dishonest, because if the situation was reversed in some different contingency, you would not like that done to you. And well, that's one thing. That's more like the hypocrisy argument. But another thing is just that, you know, you're implicitly accepting the contingency as sufficient. Well, here's something I can do, so I'll do it. So it's, you know, it's good. But you don't see that you're just being fooled. You don't see that there's just a carrot that's being dangled in front of you, and you're a mule, you know, or a horse running to get it. Right? So you're being dishonest when you don't recognize that the contingency is insufficient to you. And also that you're a hypocrite. You're a fucking hypocrite. That you're not doing it honestly, decently. You're doing something that on some fundamental level, on the plane of the absolute, you know, universal plane, you sort of understand this. You're not doing the thing that you're supposed to do. You're not doing the thing that is honest and well to do. Not necessarily moral, but there's something to it, which is the negation of some stupid contingency for him, the absolute. So I feel like I probably shouldn't continue, because it's not gonna get you know, I feel like I reached the peak of this discussion there. So yeah, hopefully, you know, this is always dangerous to say things like that, because I wonder if people will misunderstand it. But, you know, you also don't want to throw out a bunch of ifs, else, and buts, and oh, but I'm actually a good guy, guys. You know, I could say that I support LGBT people, not a bigot, and that's not why I say these things, especially at the beginning. But if you have to put out the if you have to put out the trigger warning in the first place, you're probably lost already. You know, or not necessarily trigger warning, but the disclaimer. You know, you have to put out a disclaimer. You're sort of already lost on your audience there. If they have to have it pointed out to you, even though you've already pointed it out, that you're just trying to get to some truth about the world. You're not trying to just virtue signal for fucking once, like most people just expect you to do, fall in, virtue signal, but to actually discuss honestly the issue. Right? So again, there's one more thing, that it's all well and good to support Palestine, and I you know, I feel sorry for them, and you know, again, I could say these things, but in a way it's kind of annoying that many of these people just pick out this one calamity, when there are all these other calamities that are happening all the time and have been happening, and They just don't really give a fuck about those. That's kind of annoying, isn't it? So there's something fundamentally annoying to me about, even if something is correct or good, it may still be incorrect or bad, if you know what I mean. You know, you can point out the fact, make an argument, but you still lose the essence of what you're trying to say because you're not being completely honest about it, or because you're trying to turn everything into a utilitarian argument like, well, society works, you know, we need to maintain laws because it works, we need to maintain order because it makes the society work. But many of these people, liberals, statists, I suppose, who will say, who will not consider the possibility that maybe if things went south, that would actually be better in the long run. Because all, you know, that even though society might work, and that works for a lot of people who are privileged, it does not work for the millions who are underprivileged, who would actually benefit from a revolution, who would benefit from lootings and killings, because it would free them from their poverty and they could do whatever they wanted. It doesn't dawn on them. You're not allowed to say things like that. You know, theft is always wrong. What if you need it more than the other guy? Why is it wrong then? Well, because you need to maintain order. Now, fuck you and your order. You know, if you're hungry, right? People don't care about those things. They can't comprehend the deeper shit that some people are in. They can't comprehend the deeper levels of a subject. I walked into a spider's web. Well, that's a good metaphor to end to life. I mean, all kinds of shit. Yeah, just more melancholy. Yeah, so I better end it. It's gonna get too long, like my dick. Bye. It is what it is.